You're listening to Why Germany podcast, the best place for relocation stories and expert tips, sponsored by Over the Offek, relocation agency to Germany, with your host, Eden Levine.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eden Levine, and you're on Why Germany podcast. And with me is Helena Putsch. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so excited. I know Helena from before, and she is going to tell you some very interesting stories. So let's dive into that. So, Helena, why Germany?
It's a simple answer. My father is German. And having grown up in South Africa my whole life, where I went to school and studied, my family, at least my dad, came back to Germany and took my siblings and my mother with him when I was still finishing school. And after I'd finished my degree in Cape Town, I thought, let's give it a try. It's now or never. So my dad was working in Leipzig at the time. And I landed here and sort of haven't left. I fell in love with the city and have made a really, really, really lovely life here.
Okay, that sounds already very intriguing. We need to go back and understand the whole story from zero. So tell us from the start.
As I said, I'd finished my degree, so I was sort of at a crossroads, or I was about to finish my degree, and I had an unpleasant security situation in South Africa. It's not a secret that it's not the safest place in the world, and very frankly, it shook me. And at that moment, I sort of thought, okay, I'd like to experience what it's like to live elsewhere, and that was one of the things that hit me the hardest when I moved here the first night. Sleeping in a room that I felt completely safe in a house that I felt completely safe in was a revelation.
Wow.
It made a huge difference to my sense of well-being, and the home that I'd lived in beforehand was not in the safest area. We were still students. You know, you live where you can afford to live. And we just had a number of break-ins and things that just made a big impact. I'm always very conflicted talking about that because I don't want that to be people's first impression of South Africa, because it's such an incredible place. It's such incredible people. There is such strength and such unity and such love, but due to many factors that play into the level of crime, not least of them, you know, the history of apartheid in South Africa and the legacy that's still ongoing there. You know, there are a lot of people who have it really hard, and there aren't a lot of alternatives. Anyway, that was one of the things that kicked it off. And then I got here and felt so welcome and at home, and loved the lifestyle that one can have here in Germany and in Leipzig especially. You know, biking to the lakes in an afternoon, everything's very accessible. Being able to walk around wherever I like, any time of night or day, as a young woman was, again, you know, something I'd never experienced before, and something that made a big impact on me. And 15 years later, I now have children, and I love that they can experience that growing up here. That freedom, that flexibility is really something very special.
Right. I mean, this is part of this podcast to not only share what's amazing or what's bad. It's really the good, the bad, and the ugly. It is what it is, because we don't want to portray anything that is on one side, right? There is no black and white in reality. And so it's also the case with South Africa. It's on two legs, right?
Absolutely.
So it has to be also presented. And I feel the same, because also when I came from Israel, it's also me saying, hey, there were reasons, and they might be still there or not, but it's not portraying Israel as an amazing country, but it's, again, not black and white. So it's important that you mentioned that hey, this is reality.
Yes,
this is
absolutely.
Reality. And so before you decided to come to Germany, did you visit before? Have you seen the country before?
I had been here often with my family. They'd been living here for 8 years before I moved, and I was only 15 when they did move, so I was here often on holidays. But we were in a very different part of Germany then. My family had relocated initially to Bavaria, and they lived in a very small village in Bavaria. And I would come here on school holidays or there, And not a lot going on. And so,
In a village?
so it was, quite a pleasant surprise to then, I landed in Berlin. My dad picked me up. He'd only been living here a few months when I arrived. And so Leipzig was a whole new, I'd never been to this part of Germany at all, let alone the cities. I'd visited Berlin very briefly, but it was all new, all fresh, all exciting.
Wow. So I think also the right question that comes afterwards is why Leipzig? Because you haven't seen it before. Your family did not live here. So what drew you here?
Well, my dad had then moved here, and he had been working here very briefly, which is why I ended up here. My initial plan was to sort of look for further study options anywhere. I initially looked at 1 or 2 in the United Kingdom, and I didn't actually plan to stay very long in the beginning. But then I found a course here in Leipzig at the HTWK in an area that I was interested in. They offer a publishing course. And that was what I'd worked in before. I'd studied literature and anthropology in Cape Town, had worked in publishing there, and thought this would be a great way to get my foot in the language, in the culture, and then get a degree that is automatically then recognized here in Germany, because that's one of the specialities of Germany. Like, if you don't have the degree for this job, you can't do it. So that's kind of how that was why Leipzig. Then I found it, got accepted, and that was the commitment I made then to Leipzig.
I always find it very fascinating to talk with people who are here for so long, because Leipzig changed her face immensely, like almost 180. Tell us how it was before, like 15 years ago.
It was very different. There were a lot fewer people. I feel like that's noticeable now, how full Leipzig's become. It's lovely. I enjoy that incredibly. I think it's also become a lot more international.
Absolutely.
You hear, being an English speaker, you clock that all over the place now. Whereas before, I remember, speaking English in public and you would turn heads. It was a shock for many people. I have a couple of friends who've been here even longer than I did and the stories they tell, even in the late 90s or early 2000s, it was even more exotic. I think the first thing that springs to mind is the urban landscape. It was very different. There were a lot of empty houses, empty factories, and there was a very different feeling. Then I was in my early 20s, so all the parties that were held in, empty spaces or out in the fields, and there was a very free sense of a lot of possibility, and people took advantage of that in the best sense. There was just a lot of arts, music, and youth culture, clubs and parties that made it really exciting just to be young here.
Right.
That was the thing I remember the most. And the food's gotten better. There wasn't a lot of really good food. I missed that from Cape Town. Cape Town's quite a gastronomical what do you say, location or place to be. So that's been a big plus.
Yeah.
As well. And things like the things that now is, the Karl-Heine-Straße, the West being a fun place to party or go out or what have you. There was nothing there. There was maybe like a pub, and that was it, and everything else was sort of grey. So it has changed a lot.
It was more raw.
It was more raw, absolutely.
Yeah. And your family is still in Bavaria?
No. Well, my sisters grew up as they do, and one of them actually lives in Leipzig now, having studied in Dresden as well. And my youngest sister was in Leipzig for a while and moved back to Bavaria, and my parents are no longer together, and my mom also having moved back to South Africa, back to Germany. She's now in Bavaria as well.
Wow. Okay. What are you doing now in Leipzig?
Well, I have my family here and a job that I love and I'm very passionate about. I work at the Leipzig International School in communications. Have been there for about 6 years now. Almost will be the end of summer, and that's also been another journey into Leipzig, and it's especially its international side. I've really loved this job, and becoming part of that community has been really, really special and really enriching.
Yeah, we're going to go deep dive into that. I just want to know first what brought you into working there? How did you get there?
I came to a point when my daughter was 6 years old, and in Germany, it's then, the time when children start school, primary school. And she was a very shy 6-year-old. She also has her birthday very late in the year, in June. And I wasn't sure if she was really ready to go to school. But the state of Saxony and the city of Leipzig, in their wisdom, ordained that she was. And it was a very peculiar process to try and even ask questions about it. The final person who has the final decision about whether your child has to go to school or not is the principal of the school that she's allocated in your local area. And so I ended up sitting in an office with this man who'd never met my child, who didn't know anything about us as a family, and who then said a child has a right to education, which they absolutely do, and she has to go to school now. And I was sort of thrown by this whole process and started just looking around for alternatives. And I had a friend who worked at the international school at the time, and she says, well, why don't you look here? And I did, thought what was offered and the sort of gentle environment and the way people were really interested to understand us as a family and our needs and my child's needs was something that I hadn't encountered in any steps in my journey looking at what education looks like in Germany. And there was also then at the same time an opening for a position that I thought I would be really good at, or that just fit at the time. And I applied and got the job, and my daughter started. We basically had off my first day of work and her first day of school were the same day. So we've had this journey together over the last 6 years.
Amazing.
My son is there now as well. He then joined the kindergarten a few months after I started there. So we're, fully immersed in this world.
You're an international school family.
We are 100%.
Oh, that's great. So tell us how does it go now for your children in this system?
Sure. My daughter is now turning 12 now in June. She's in the 6th grade. So we've had the whole primary school experience. My son turned 9 in March, and he's gone through the kindergarten and the beginning of the primary school. And I couldn't be more pleased. I know this is biased because I work there as well, and it's kind of my job to talk about the school. But honestly, from the heart, I am so grateful for the system and for the people that work there and work daily with my kids. I think the first thing that I loved about it was the primary school. They have no grades. It also goes until the 5th grade, so kids have that in comparison to the German system. One more year just to be kids, and I think that giving no grades and really basing their yearly evaluation on where they are as individuals within the school system is incredibly holistic and really just appreciates what it is that we want with education. It's not what's on a piece of paper, but helping kids find what they're good at and where their passions are and giving them time to discover that. And I think that's one of the things I appreciate most.
Right. Just a small side note for those who don't know. I used to be a chemistry teacher. I told you that.
You did.
In high school. And Helena was kind enough to give me a tour in the school. And I told you that I wish I could have been a teacher in the school and a student in the school because of how, well, first of all, I felt very peaceful at the school, which was very unique situation for me. Like, yes, you have kids running around, but it's not like loud and extreme and like, I don't know, it's you have kids, but you have calmness in the same time. I don't know how that happened, but that was amazing. And also like the tools that the teachers have to go around, to teach, to even the locks on the door were took me by surprise. It was amazing. So I was very grateful also to take a stroll in the in the school. It was really great. I want to go first to maybe take it a bit backwards, because people don't really know how does the school system look like in Germany. So let's talk a little bit about the differences between public schools and private schools, and then we dive in more into specifically the international school.
I can't really talk to the entire German school system because I don't have any direct contact, but through my work in schooling in general, I do have a fairly good impression. My daughter was in a German kindergarten, and before that she went to what is here in Germany was referred to a Tagesmutter, which is in the nursery age, so from 1 until 3. Either they can be in a nursery, which is usually in a kindergarten system that offers all-round care from kids from 1 until 6. But then they divide it usually into Krippe and kindergarten, which is nursery, and then kindergarten. So the ages 1 to 3 are handled very differently than the ages 3 to 6, because children of those ages have very different needs. So my daughter was at a Tagesmutter, which is something that is offered all throughout Germany. And it's a person who has a qualification to look after children under the age of 3. They aren't allowed to have more than 5 kids at a time in their wherever they do it. Sometimes they do it at home. Usually they have a dedicated space for that. And I love that system. It's very, they call it a Tagesmutter for a reason, a day mother. They have an incredibly strong and close connection to this person. There are only 5 children in their care. So that's a really lovely thing. And we were lucky enough to find some really great people who looked after our kids, or my kids. Then my daughter transitioned into the kindergarten, and there is also, I think, the German kindergarten system is incredibly modern. They're really at the cutting edge of what education is. Not even education, like what kids need. The conversations I had there with people about the development of my child, and this was before. This has nothing to do with the Leipzig International Kindergarten, although we offer exactly the same level of interaction. But that was really very impressive. And my son then went through that kindergarten system in the nursery as well, and very similar. Also very small groups, great facilities. I think especially, as we said, Leipzig's changed a lot. The demographics have changed a lot, which also means that the city had to accommodate a growing number of young people and kids.
Fast growing.
Very fast.
Yeah.
And everybody seemed to be having children. There was a real issue around getting kindergarten spot for a long time. They've really expanded that offer very well, and at the moment it's not quite as competitive to get a place. So that's early childhood education. And again, I think there are a lot of different options you can have. There are state kindergartens. We were on one called a Fröbe kindergarten, and they have a whole school of thinking that goes with that. There are also Montessori kindergartens, Waldorf kindergartens. I think if you're looking for something, you will definitely find
or like alternative options than the normal
alternative options.
Yeah,
you'll find what you're looking for.
Right.
And then school starts, as I said, in Germany from the age of 6. If you want to deviate from that in any way, if you want your child to start earlier or later, then you have to go through a considerable process of defining why that is. And then you have to, there's a lot of interaction with the state. After the age of 6, you start with the primary school system, and that is then goes grade 1, 2, 3, and 4. That is what's called the Grundschule, so the basis school, foundation school. And there you usually have the same teacher from grade 1 through to grade 4. The first grade, as far as I'm aware, there are no grades given, and children cover a curriculum from what's called Sachkunde, which is sort of general knowledge, basic humanities, German, English, mathematics, sport, and then depending on the facilities of the school, other things like music or any other kind of topic that they would like to cover. The school day is relatively short, depending on what the schedule looks like, and kids are usually out of school by 1 o'clock in the afternoon and start anytime from 7:30 to 8 o'clock. That's what I know about primary school. And the secondary, then you tend to then in the 4th grade have to decide which direction you and your child would like to go, or your child would like to go. And you have options from an Oberschule, a Realschule, and a Gymnasium or a Gymnasium. And those ended different with different diplomas or different school leaving certificates.
And also in different times. So they don't
different
have
grades.
Yeah, they don't have
Exactly.
12. All have 12 grades.
Usually the Gymnasium goes up until the 12th grade, and you get a Hochschulzugangsberechtigung, lovely German word, which can be shortened to a HZB, which basically is a certificate that says you can then go on to tertiary education, so university or college or trade school or what have you. Then the Realschulabschluss, or what's also called the mittlere Reife, ends after the 10th class, 10th grade, and there you are able to go into an apprenticeship or into a trade school. There are also then, in Germany, there are also alternative things that you can also do. You can also go to get a Fachabitur, which then lets you go to a Fachhochschule, which is also something like a college. It's not university level, but it is of an almost equal grading in terms of what you get at the end of it, the diploma you get. The Oberschule, I'm not quite as sure when that ends. I think 9th or 10th grade as well, and then usually there are additional things that you can do to go on to tertiary education.
If you want to learn more about relocation to Germany, look for Over the Offek on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
It's well known that Germany has a good school system, regardless if it's public or private. But what would be the actual difference, aside from obviously the tuition? But why would somebody choose private over public and vice versa?
At the moment, and I can speak mostly to the Saxon setting, there are some difficulties with finding teachers for especially subjects like the sciences and maths, which leads to, as far as I've heard, a lot of lessons not taking place, children not feeling prepared enough. There are also certain lags in catching up with where we are in our digital age. Those things seem to be the things that I hear from parents at public schools where they see that there could be some improvement. Then, of course, as I mentioned before, in terms of grading and what we generally seem to feel as a lot of pressure on young people, especially since and during Corona, they feel an immense pressure to keep up. And I think that's something that then alternative schools try to look at, give kids the space to find out what they're good at without this immense pressure from a very early age to A, decide what direction your life is going to take, and B, to get grades. So I can again, speak mostly to my experience at the international school, giving kids no grades up until the age of 11, up until grade 5, gives them room to follow their own curiosity. And I can say this as well to my daughter. She's not incredibly good at maths, but she really enjoys it in terms of creatively finding solutions to problems. And this was something that I, wish I'd had at her age. She really likes sort of, delving into puzzles and creative ways to solve things. And that was something she really had the time to do. Whereas I think if they were, set testing points and grades were given from the age of early as 7 to say, okay, this is where you are according to, what we think you can do in maths, that would have really dampened her curiosity and closed a door that I think is unfortunate. So another thing that I see in our school system is we offer something that we kind of sometimes joke, diaper to diploma. It's sort of a whole school experience. So you can come in at nursery at the age of 1, and if you continue to live in Leipzig, graduate with us at grade 12, and that means that your entire childhood is accompanied by in an organization with people who will know you for your whole life. So these transitions from kindergarten to school, from primary school to secondary school, and then throughout, the stages of your development as a young person, they're accompanied by people who've known you, and the transitions are a lot smoother. I think that helps incredibly, and because we're also an inclusive school. In German, it's called something like Gesamtschule. We don't tell kids at any point, okay, you don't have the academics that we want to see, so you have to now leave our school or go through to a different route. We offer differentiated instruction, which means, all children should be able to access our education, whether, they have learning needs or are, more on the gifted spectrum. We cover all of that. And I think that also brings all kids together with different abilities, and that helps them to also, experience the world more diversely than being tracked relatively early.
Right. And this is also something that I wanted to bring up next is really there are many cultural differences around the school, because the students go there from all walks of life, all countries, all different country of origins, also Germans, but also expats and internationals. So how does the school take the approach towards this international community, and how do you maybe celebrate the cultural differences and traditions and languages? How does that work?
Well, I think it's sort of baked in. We have 77 nationalities amongst our student body. It is. I every now and again, I'm like, is that really true? And I go back and count, and I'm like, we really do.
Wow.
And amongst our teaching staff, about upwards of 44.
Wow.
It's just there every day. We do have a large German population as well. We've noticed that there is a need for this kind of education here, or at least our Leipzig families have really, come to us over the years. So it is important that we also offer kids the German language as a way to really integrate into Leipzig and into Germany, so that they don't, get stuck in this sort of international bubble, which can happen. You come here, you find a community that speaks your language, whatever that may be, and then, you stay in there. But we want to really enable kids to, if they decide to stay here long term, to really be able to integrate into the local community. We offer a large after-school activity program, but we do also encourage kids to go out and join clubs and Vereine with in things that are of their interest, that Leipzig offers, to get to know, everyone else in the city as well. And in terms of celebrating, we celebrate everything from Diwali to, Easter, international days, a part of our yearly calendar, and we notice this in every event where we ask parents to bake things. People come with their samosas and their sushi and things from all over the world, and it's a constant discussion. I noticed this with my kids as well. Like, somebody brought something to school to eat today that I've never heard of before, and it's made like this. And I went to someone's house and we had this to eat. And food is often a big way that people can share cultures. And we have a really wonderful team of people at our school who are in charge. We call them the Child Welfare and Protection Team, but also therapists in kindergarten, primary, and in secondary that really keep an eye out for kids' social emotional needs. And sometimes, if there is a need to bring kids together and really talk about how can I be a good friend, how can I deal with difficult emotions or interactions that are maybe challenging, that support is really there, and that's really guided. And it's very much part of our awareness as staff at the school, that, these are the things we talk about and discuss with kids if there's need for that. So there's a lot of support and accompaniment in all aspects of life, not just academic.
Amazing. And this is part of, I think, what makes it attractive, right? Like, first of all, I don't think we've mentioned it, but the school is mostly speaking English.
Correct.
And there are the German classes, but all the other classes are basically in English, and that what helps also, I think, to make the German kids that come, and that's maybe if I connect to what you said, like the need from the German families here in Leipzig to be more exposed to other cultures, other languages, and really that helps with the mindset of being more international, even if you're still like where you were born at, and also to the other side, like those who come from other parts, to still have the German language. Like you said, it helps if they want to integrate later, but also to be exposed to other cultures and other languages. I think it's super interesting to have that as like in your school. For me, I only got it when I came here, and I think it could have been amazing to have it before. But this is something that I had heard of a question before. Do you have to be rich to go to the international school, or maybe in private schools also in general? But let's go with international school.
Sure. I mean, I can't speak to other private schools in Leipzig, but one thing that we really prize when we call ourselves inclusive, it's really not just something on a piece of paper or that we stick on our wall. We offer 25% of our families reduced fees, which means that families of all walks of life are able to access our education. The application is then really reviewed family by family, and I think that's, I like to repeat it as well. It's not 5%, it's not 10%. It's really every fourth child at school, doesn't pay full tuition, and I think that's an important role that we play, because the international school was founded as not just a school, but an important factor in Leipzig in terms of getting international education and investment. We have kids from all the research institutes, the university. If a company in the region of Leipzig wants to recruit internationally, they often need to know that international kids can be educated here. So we have a very diverse student body and people who come from, as you say, all walks of life.
Right. And are there any differences when it comes to, like, okay, we say there are people who maybe are, their economical state is less fortunate, and they're still joining. How do you treat the kids in terms of the differences? Because I've seen there is no uniform.
Correct.
So, I mean, there could be, the differences when, he got the newest iPhone and I don't, or so how do you treat this kind of difference as well?
I hear what you're saying. I mean, I think these differences exist in any school that you're at. There is always someone who has the newest iPhone and there's someone who doesn't. I noticed this with our kids. They're really good kids, and no, I'm serious. Like, I wasn't sure what to expect either when I started working there, but I don't know what it is about the environment as well. I think it is the diversity, and that you're constantly daily confronted with people from all walks of life and all locations and cultures, that there isn't an incredible amount of value placed on status symbols. We don't have a uniform, as you say. But we do also offer, school hoodies and what have you. So there are a lot of kids who take that option. It hasn't been an issue in all my time there, and it's been six years. I have yet to see, and I see my daughter going up into secondary school now, and of course, how you look starts to play a different role. But I see kids who dress as differently as, we've got grunge kids and we've got, I don't know, fancy kids, but
but it's not altering anything, or it's not interfering in their social part of the school.
Absolutely not. And that's something very heartwarming to see.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you advise parents who are thinking about coming into the international school or bringing their children to the international school?
Well, the first step for any family who's interested is to get in touch with our admissions office. The links are on our website, and they usually get in touch, tell them what their needs are, what their plans are, if they're already in Leipzig or if they plan to move here soon, what grade their kids are, so that we can assess if there's space in those classes, because we at the moment are almost at limit. And then the next step is always to be, we invite them in, they have an appointment with our admissions team, they get a tour around the school and get a feeling for what we do. They get to ask questions and really just give us a sense of who they are and what their needs are as a family. And then I think, it's important to know what we offer as a school. In terms of school leaving, we are an international school. We're an accredited international school, which means we offer the International Baccalaureate, which is a internationally recognized university entrance degree at a very high level of our university admissions team, we call them Beyond LAS. They counsel our kids in terms of what they want to go on to do, and we've heard in their relations with other universities that kids with an IB are really gladly seen because of the rigor of the program, and it's a lot of project-based learning as well, and kids really get a good foundation for what university expects of you. So I think that would be really ask the questions that you need to ask if you're thinking of coming to Leipzig International School about what we offer and what we do. There's a lot of resources on the website, and come and get to know us.
Yeah, absolutely come. Also, there is a test day or a couple of days for the children.
Open days, absolutely.
Days, so that you can get really the feeling of, is it fitting? It might not fit everybody, but it has a great option to at least test it. So it's
Absolutely.
really great.
And our kids then, get what we call the taster day.
Taster day.
And depending on how many they need, they come in, they spend an entire day with a class. They get assigned a buddy or two out of that grade and out of that class to take them around that day. So they really get a sense of what the school day will look like for them.
Right.
And I think that helps kids a lot to get a feeling.
Right. One last thing we're gonna mention is also that if you have more than one kid that comes to the school, then there is a discount.
Absolutely, yes.
So this is also very important. If you have more than one child that wants to come in, you're not paying the full price twice. So
Exactly.
That's really, I think it's valuable.
Yes.
So as I ask every guest about one tip for newcomers to Germany, what would that be?
I don't know if it's a tip so much as a celebration of one of the things I love about living in Leipzig is you're in the center of Europe. It's really a kind of a gateway. It's, a few hours to Prague, a train ride to Paris, to Amsterdam, to Vienna, in whatever direction you are. Make use of that. Sometimes I think to myself, like, oh man, I should do that more often. And my husband's a little more adventurous than me. So he, get on a night train, go to Vienna. I love that about living here. But and my second one would probably be get a bike as soon as you land.
Oh.
You can't get it sooner.
If we talk about traveling, then
yes.
Use all the means.
Absolutely. And Leipzig is, infrastructurally so well set up for that kind of transport.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if one of the destinations you're thinking about to move is not Leipzig, you're still in the middle of Europe, so It doesn't matter where you decide to go. You have trains, like very good connections with trains, with flights, with buses even.
Absolutely.
And some people just take the car and drive all the way 5, 6, 11 hours to Belgium, to France, to Luxembourg, Switzerland. So it's like, really explore the area that you live in, especially if you're like me, been into like an island, somewhat of an island, and you couldn't really take the train and travel outside. That is a huge opportunity. And I really appreciate that tip. I agree with it completely. I didn't take advantage of that yet. I'm still exploring Germany.
I fully understand. But even that, Germany has so much to offer. Like,
Absolutely.
From whether it's you're up at the Baltic Sea or down in the Alps, Germany's beautiful.
Beautiful. And you have so much, and like all the tiny villages, like really, you don't know where you land sometimes. You like end up being in a castle.
Yeah.
It's just like so easily intriguing to go into more and more places. I can tell you my tip into discovering places: go with concerts. That used to be my go-to before COVID hit. Then I would just book those concert tickets in other places than where I live in. And then you're just like, okay, I'm already going, so I might as well take 3 days there, right? So yeah, that's one way.
Absolutely. Music is a big thing. I mean, living in Southern Africa, no big names came down,
really?
to us. So, if somebody came, everybody went. But here, there's so much of that, so much culture.
Yeah, and especially also like in small cities, like Leipzig also had Metallica coming here. I was like, wow, that'd have been amazing to see.
Yeah.
So definitely go with concerts if that's what you're in for, or just find those forests to go seeing or mountains to climb or whatever. You have so many options in Germany and Europe-wide.
Absolutely.
So, Helena, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
It's been so much fun.
It has been fun.
And I hope that you got some understanding about the school systems. We're going to talk a lot more about it with other podcast episode, but this in particular was, I think, for me, very valuable to know about the international school and also private schools in Germany. So I really appreciate that.
I appreciate it too. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Why Germany. If you want to learn more about relocation, make sure to visit overtheoffek.com, your relocation experts.